call us to belated order. The first order of business is approval of the agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as circulated.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any amendments to the agenda as circulated? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
And we move next to the consent agenda, which consists of approval of the October 2025 Town Council meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We move then to presentations by residents. Are there any residents who wish to make a presentation to the council? If so, step up to the microphone. Identify yourself by name and address.
Hi, my name is Rory Smith. With me is my wife, Jessica Chu. We're residents at 4400 Oxford Street. We come before the council today and ask that pursuant to your authority in section 712E of the driveway code that you approve our request for a driveway permit.
One moment. I'm getting feedback.
I can try and adjust it.
Okay, or
Further into the room.
let's.
Choose the whole leaving, but next time, see it. Stops it. Test
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Is that better?
Okay.
It's better for me. Okay. Sorry
Okay.
for the interruption.
Yeah, no problem.
712E is in Edward.
Correct. Which provides the town council the authority to approve locations and grades of driveways. We went through the regular order, applying for a permit with the town. Our permit was denied for reasons I'll reference later in my presentation. At first, I want to explain to you why we need a driveway and why I believe our proposal is maximize the safety for residents and pedestrians. You want to put it up for that? All right, so I'll explain chronologically what's happened since we've moved into our house approximately in spring 2020. We went under contract around March of 2020. At that time, the sidewalk project was underway. We moved into our house sometime around May 2020, where the sidewalk project had been completed. You know, obviously we're in the midst of the pandemic. Kids are in Zoom school. So how the driveway was constructed was the least of our problems. What the town did at the time to remediate the removal of the driveway after the sidewalk was constructed, the town reinstalled asphalt in the right of way at a relatively poor grade and poor quality of workmanship. Now, again, this is the least of our problems. The rest of the driveway wasn't in great repair either, so we decided to leave it for a future time in order to undertake a more comprehensive project. So we've used the driveway for 5 years now, and we've noticed a lot of flaws. For example, the way the driveway currently is, that's the proposal. The way the driveway currently is a single shotgun style up to the driveway. Our proposal has the pendant access out to Weymouth Street. So how it currently works, in order to access one or both cars, you have to back up onto Oxford Street. Now it's problematic because it's an intersection between Oxford and Weymouth. So you can have cars coming down the hill, down Oxford. You can have cars going each way on Weymouth Street, perhaps simultaneously. There's also, as you can see, there's a town tree that was recently installed. There's a magnolia tree, which is beautiful, but it further obstructs visibility coming downward on Oxford. Since the vehicles aren't the only problem, obviously there's a sidewalk there, so you have pedestrians, and we're on a bike route on top of that. So on a normal school day, There's various elementary school children who live on Weymouth Street who are walking by our driveway on the sidewalk. So backing up, needless to say, very hazardous for residents, for pedestrians, and for users of the driveway. I was referenced quickly, section 712A of the town ordinance driveway code says location of parking and access driveway facilities shall be selected to provide maximum safety for pedestrians, for street traffic, and for users of the driveway facilities. So after experiencing this for a number of years, we conceived an idea it'd be much safer to have an outlet onto Weymouth Street where we can pull through the driveway, look both ways. Weymouth Street is a dead end, so it's a lesser of the traveled streets. We'd be able to see with increased visibility who's coming and account for their safety. So we're wondering, is this feasible? I looked at town code. I called Phil Normandy because there's a large Dawn redwood we see referenced there right adjacent to the driveway. We wanted to make sure that in doing this driveway, we're not going to be killing that tree. So I called Phil Normandy, and Phil Normandy said that we were in luck because a Dawn redwood is a very hardy tree. It regenerates roots very quickly. He said the only thing we need to do is keep the adjacent access as far away from the roots as possible. So we accounted for that. I asked Phil if he knew anyone who was good at doing driveways who could account for these trees. He suggested we use J&G Landscaping, who've done a number of projects in town. I believe they recently did George Martin's driveway on Oxford Street. He said he had a good history of working with them. So we called J&G Landscape Architecture, came out, we talked to them. We asked them, which surface would you recommend for this driveway? They told us they'd recommend using an asphalt because it's more forgiving for the roots of the tree. After some of them are removed, it's going to propagate. They're going to continue to expand out. The asphalt will allow some further growth. Won't suppress and inhibit their growth in the future, inhibiting the health of the tree. J&G architects have certified that the aprons that they've represented on these plans are fully compliant with Montgomery County Code. Apparently, the town accepts 2 apron requirements. He said either of them would be fine. He talked to the county inspector to find which one the county preferred, but either of them that the county prefers can be installed. So anyway, after doing all this, around mid-October, I applied for a permit with the town. Which point the town denied the permit, which brings me to you tonight. Now I'd like to disagree with some of the reasons that were provided for denial. We received an email that our permit was denied. The town stated our proposal would require 2 permit applications, one for each point of ingress and egress. I found no support for this requirement, and the town manager has not supplied it. The town also stated our proposal was inconsistent with the town's technical standards for driveways. The manager explained that she has recently used her authority to process permits to require that driveways in the town right of way are to be constructed exclusively of concrete and has prohibited the use of asphalt on the town right of way. There is no notice of this purported standard on the town website. The permit application does not state this requirement. It is not in the town code. Moreover, I see no delegation of authority by the town council to its agent to impose such requirement. Section 712E states that approval is required for grade and location. Section 712A states selection of a location shall be guided by safety considerations. Requiring the exclusive use of concrete for driveways constructed in the town right of way will make landscape projects cost prohibitive, will make driveway projects cost prohibitive, has no safety benefits, and in some cases will hurt adjacent trees. The landscape architect who designed our project referred us to Phil Normandy. The landscape architect suggested we use asphalt rather than cement because it would be less restrictive. Our proposal includes the construction of the cement apron on the Weymouth egress, paid at our own cost. The quote for the apron was between $7,000 and $9,000. If the town council requires us to double or triple the amount of cement used, we are looking at a huge increase in cost with no identified safety benefit and at the expense of the health of Dawn redwood. Indeed, I would imagine that many residents would be surprised to learn that undertaking any driveway project in Garrett Park will now come at increased costs that have been imposed by the town manager and not by the town council. Finally, I disagree that this technical standard actually exists in practice. After the 2020 sidewalk project, the town replaced all disrupted driveways in the town right away with in-kind material. Our current asphalt driveway was replaced with asphalt. At that time, the town determined that a 4-foot cement apron was sufficient not only for our street, for our driveway, but for every driveway on Oxford Street. To now impose a new requirement is an arbitrary and capricious application of the town's authority. I ask the town consider its own past practice, as well as the safety benefits I've identified, and approve our permit pursuant to its authority in section 712E of the town code.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I built a house around the corner on Montrose and Oxford. And I put in an asphalt driveway and a concrete apron just at the entrance.
Right.
And so were you talking about a concrete driveway or just
No.
the entryway?
So if you reference the proposal we have,
Right.
you can see where the town right of way is designated with a dotted line,
Right,
and the cement aprons are designated in a lighter color. The deficiency that's been identified is past the 4-foot existing apron and past the apron proposed by our architect, consistent with county standards, up until the end of the right of way needs to be cement. And I submit that that's not in the town
In
code.
other words, the whole thing is either cement or you have asphalt up to that line.
I-
Cement and then.
Right, I could have asphalt after that line, but the issue is between the apron and the end of the right of way.
how many feet is that?
I didn't measure it exactly, but I'd say roughly 6 additional feet. I'd say it extends 10 feet on either side.
It's on both sides.
And it's on both sides, that's right.
Here. It's all this section right. This is already envisioning concrete on the apron on the side.
So you're saying that the concrete has to be the entire run of the right of way?
I'm saying that that's not required in code. The town manager has identified that as a requirement.
Right. Yeah.
Can I just want to make sure, I just wanted to ask a clarifying.
So, but it's not, I don't think it's 15 feet. It's more like 5 feet.
The
So
apron
The-
of the
yeah,
driveway,
the concrete apron.
the
It's
concrete
only
apron,
about 5 feet. I don't
beyond
think
the apron.
beyond the apron, it's asphalt. The run of the driveway is asphalt.
I just want to make sure, as a non-asphalt and concrete expert, which is certainly the category that I fall in, Phil said that the asphalt would be more amenable to the
The-
health of the adjacent tree. Is that
The
right?
landscape architect that Phil referred us to
Right.
said that.
More so than the concrete.
Right, he
Which
said-
Okay.
He said concrete, is tougher, and eventually what's gonna happen with asphalt, as you can see in our current driveway, if you go there, over time, it's, permeated up through the
Yeah.
driveway and cause heaving. And he says asphalt will allow that, cement will not. He also said that we've got about 30, 40 years of the driveway, like looking new before we have to replace it again,
Yeah.
but 30, 40 years is good enough for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I just wanted to make sure I heard that right. Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate that.
Would you be amenable to having the concrete apron just for like 5 feet rather than the whole right of way area from the entrance
As-
to the driveway?
And whatever Montgomery County standards require, it's fine. Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's reflected on this apron right.
I believe it's a 4-foot apron, which is what the town deemed sufficient in 2020. And we do it, I mean, we're gonna do it. It's between $7,000 and $9,000, so
All right,
we're willing to do it.
I'm gonna draw a halt to this. To the colloquy,
To the what?
to the colloquy, the back and forth. This is presentations by residents. Have you finished your presentation?
I finished my presentation.
Okay. Now, I need to take an informal reading of the council, whether we should entertain what is essentially a petition under 712E to consider the denial of this permit.
Mayor Keller, if I may, I did just want to clarify, their permit has not been denied. I asked for 2 pieces of supplemental information from the Smiths. That request was made on October 24th. I then had some email exchanges with Mr. Smith dating back to October 27th, and then I had heard nothing from them until I reached out today to clarify what their intent was. So the permit has not been denied. Specifically, what they were asked to provide is on the Weymouth side, to provide plans that showed the extent of the right-of-way as well as where the concrete was anticipated to go. On the Oxford side, because this is a separate, an existing curb cut, not a new one, and they clarified that they would be doing work in the right-of-way, I did suggest to them that they file a second driveway permit to cover the work in that right-of-way, and if they could please clarify what that work would entail. We have not received that information. I did, as I mentioned, send an email to the Smiths today because I had heard via Councilmember Deutsch that they thought their permit had been denied. I clarified for them what information was needed and that upon receipt of that information, their permit would be approved. Regarding the work that was done during the Safe Routes to School project, I was not with the town at that time. What I was advised by our civil engineering firm is that the 4 feet of concrete was put in by the town consistently where sidewalks went in. The 4 feet was put in at the town's expense to align with the driveway width. Any other driveway related work that was impacted by the Safe Routes to School project within the project limit of disturbance was restored to whatever material the resident's driveway consisted of at that time. So if it was gravel, the town restored the gravel. If it was asphalt, asphalt was restored. I also wanted to share that in anticipation of approving their permit, I had asked the town's arborist about tree protection requirements. I can bring this email up on the screen if it's desired, but basically Mr. Normandy replied, the second curb cut is explained in the document. Of course, it was not about protecting the tree. In fact, more roots will be cut through this though the species can handle it. Strong rerooter, when I first met with them on site, that part wasn't visualized yet. So I just wanted to clarify, their permit has not been denied.
Just one clarifying question. So am I hearing that if they resubmit the permit as drawn here, and I know you may not be able to see it.
Yeah, I
but
apologize, I
shows
can't see that.
asphalt all the way up to the existing concrete.
Apron.
What apron? That it would be
Well,
approved?
the existing concrete is a sidewalk
Right.
and
Correct.
apron that are integral.
Correct. The mayor is correct.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I just want to clarify what I heard, because I thought I heard you say if they resubmit the appropriate double permit, it would be approved.
So we follow the county standards, and I just wanted to note, this is not a standard that I developed. It was a standard that I was advised was in place when I started. As I understand it, concrete is generally required by the county until the right-of-way, to match the right-of-way line. So that is the standard we have been using. As I said, that was a standard that was conveyed to me by our civil engineering firm when I joined the town staff about 4 years ago. And that is what we have required.
All right. That's the presentation. If I get a sense of the council that we wish to resolve this evening, I will entertain a motion to retroactively amend the agenda to add under new business resolution of the application, or to the extent we can, resolution of the application. We can't do it in presentations by residents.
I think given the season and the approaching cold weather and probably their desire to move forward one way or the other, we should go ahead and resolve this.
All right, I'll take that as a motion to retroactively amend the agenda to add an item under new business. Is there a second?
I would second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any otherwise minded? All right, we'll resume this discussion under new business. I'm sorry to make you wait. That brings us to the next order of, I'm sorry, are there other presentations by residents?
Hi there.
Thank you.
Steve Welker, 10705 Weymouth Street. I'm here as president of the Garrett Park Citizens Association, and I have two things I wanted to bring up. First, I want to thank the council and the mayor for their serious consideration of the MCPS boundary study and their fantastic support and service to the town and the larger community. We've rallied around keeping Garrett Park together, and I'm very confident that we will succeed thanks in large part to your advocacy in front of the Board of Education and in the future. So thank you so much for that. I'm also here, very unrelated, to express my deep concern about the way that the Garrett Park Citizens Association, a group of which every resident is a member and which is run by dedicated volunteers working to strengthen this community, has been treated by the town office. For decades, the CA has served as a bridge between residents and government, organizing events, hosting discussions, welcoming new neighbors, and helping make Garrett Park the unique, close-knit community we're proud to call home. As you know, we are currently engaged in a very focused effort to keep the community together in the face of a possible split in articulation of our high schools. And the CA volunteers, which includes the board and various other members of the community, give their time freely with no compensation out of love and devotion for this town. And it has been personally a tremendous privilege, a very rewarding privilege to serve as an officer of the CA. And yet, instead of being supported or even merely left alone, the CA has too often been treated as an adversary by the unelected staff in the town office. And we can no longer remain silent over the frayed relationship. These examples over the years are troubling in their unreasonableness, verging on pettiness. They include impositions and threats of fines for minor or technical issues related to the use of town hall, issues that in any other context would have and should have been handled with a simple conversation and perhaps a warning at best. We've had refusal from the town office to allow ready access to the CA's own equipment stored in the nursery basement, materials purchased and maintained for community events. And we've experienced a pattern of obstruction where the office seems to invent new requirements or insert itself in matters well beyond its proper administrative role, at times even stepping into responsibilities that clearly belong to the county, and with the implicit threat that our events such as the popular Brewfest or even the 4th of July events be shut down. This is not what public service looks like. This is what happens when staff forget that their role is administrative, not authoritative, when they start acting as though residents answer to them rather than the other way around. No one elected the town office. It exists to serve, not to control the people of Garrett Park. And as far as we can tell, no elected official, past or present, asked the town office to insert itself so aggressively and consistently into the affairs of the CA. The council, as our elected representatives, must ensure that staff act in spirit of service. When the office starts dictating terms to the CA, stepping into matters that belong to the county, or substituting its own judgment for the will of residents, we have a serious problem. It shows misplaced priorities, protecting the corporate town and its bureaucratic interests, limiting risks, instead of nurturing the relationships and institutions that make Garrett Park a community. I'm asking you tonight to do three things. Affirm publicly that the Citizens Association is a valued partner in community life. Direct the town office to treat the CA with respect, transparency, and a cooperative mindset, not as an entity to be monitored or penalized, and establish clear boundaries between administrative staff authority and the prerogatives of the residents and associations that give Garrett Park its character. This is about more than one dispute, but certainly it has been building over time, and every time it happens, I try to cool off and I move on. But it's been building too long, and it's about the culture of our town government and whether it reflects the community we believe Garrett Park should be: neighborly, collaborative, and built on trust. And the town office clearly does not trust the CA. The CA shouldn't have to fight for right to do good. It should be empowered, encouraged, thanked. If the town office is going to continue to insert itself into our affairs, threaten us, and frustrate our mission, then perhaps it is time that the town took over our responsibilities, because it would come as a surprise to nobody that we simply said enough and gave up. Nonetheless, we continue to be happy to serve and hope our complaints are seriously considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other presentations by residents? So we will move next to the public hearing on the variance application for 10814 Kenilworth Avenue, which is the building in which we sit. Town Hall, as we all know, we hope to make efforts to restore and renovate, including a replacement addition at the rear. In order to do that, we need relief from the lot coverage and other requirements of the zoning code. Is there anyone here to address the variance issues? Yes. Just, you'll.
I'm Molly Rabin. I'm a resident and co-owner of, excuse me, of 4802 Strathmore Avenue, which is adjacent to the property. Right through those doors, you can see my kitchen window. We submitted written comments, some concern about some privacy. The addition, particularly the new peak on this wall, is going to have a drastic change in the view from our yard. And these are small lots. This is a 1/3 of the size of most of the lots in town. And so the town hall is a very close neighbor. And we do have concerns about the new entrance and the windows and not so much the setback, but the impact on really kind of looming over our house and our yard. So.
Members of council, you do have printouts of the
I'm sorry,
Raven.
I have hearing.
Yes.
Mayor and Town Council, you have printouts of the comments and drawings submitted by the Ravens included with the small group of documents that were left at your seat tonight. It should be a 7-page document if you want to review that in light of the public comments.
Question for you, having Molly, sorry, having looked over your, a copy earlier, do you know that the tree, that redwood tree, or I think it's called a redwood, but anyway, it's going to be taken down, the ones, okay.
Yeah, that tree was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, it was replaced at Phil Normandy's recommendation. And we think the world of Phil Normandy. He's a fabulous resource for the town. He's a great guy. That tree was a mistake. It's in a big open space, they're gorgeous, but that is not a big open space.
No.
There was an existing shed. There's 2 fences. It's damaged the town hall fence. It definitely should go.
So, but that should also gain you a bit of sunlight in the south side, right?
No, actually, when the town was applying for permission to take the tree down, we wrote a letter in support and said that when this work on the town hall was done, that we would like a suitable replacement placed along the fence somewhere. That corner is probably not the right place.
Sure.
And we're willing to discuss it, but when the fence was replaced a few years ago, we planted the 2 river birches, which are on this end, and then closer to the other end of the property of redbud, which is very small right now. But the river birches were planted specifically to provide a shield between where we spend the majority of our time and the windows into this adjacent room right here. And that will all change with the addition, with the renovation of the building, and we will again be exposed.
Okay.
So those river birch trees would not
They're
remain
They're ours, we planted them,
and they'll stay.
they'll stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The redbud will stay. It's just that big beast that overhangs the town hall that clearly will interfere with anything you do to
Right.
renovate this building.
Right.
I'd
Thank
just
you.
like to verify, thank you for your letter. As I'm reading your letter,
Mhm.
your request of the town is not to change the design, but to add privacy screening in the way of additional vegetation as
Right.
part of our landscaping. Is that my correct understanding?
That's right. I mean, we would love to not have that second peak, but we also see the need for it, and we do value what this building offers for the town. We would just like to make sure that we don't suffer a significant negative impact, both financially and day-to-day life.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Um, do you have any apprehension that the distance requested by the town on the north side variance, simply the proximity, would make any difference in the points that you've raised this evening? Just the proximity.
The proximity of the new addition will actually come out a little farther, I think, than what exists now.
Correct.
But we understand that that's fairly necessary. You know, we understand the reason for the design, but that personally, not so much for Ken. I realized right away that that second peak was going to really change
It's,
the view
so it's the height.
and our privacy. The height is, you know, it kind of close to doubles the height of the building. And that's, I'm guessing 30 feet from the house. So.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would care to address the application for a town, by the town for a variance from its own building standards for renovation of town hall? All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing on the variance application.
Mayor Keller, can I ask one, I guess, procedural question? I think the Citizens Association presentation was a lot, and there was sort of a quick transition, but I just wanted to, there was a specific request made in those remarks, and is that something that we would potentially take up later under new business or at a later date? I just want to acknowledge that it included a request of the council. How do we want to handle that?
Well, I think we certainly need to take it under advisement, whether we do it tonight or at another time.
Okay. And it may make sense to do it another time, and maybe a request for a little more information is forthcoming. I just want to acknowledge that a request was made, and
Yes.
we'll be following up.
All right. Ron Bolt, the town attorney, would you like to begin by outlining the procedure from this point?
Sure. So if I understood correctly, we're closing the record now and going to council deliberations. And so it would be helpful for me, in order to draft the decision, if the council were to make findings of fact and conclusions of law about the town standards. Did you also want me to address the applicability of the town law, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, why don't you begin by doing that?
Okay. So yeah, it's somewhat interesting and requires a bit of explanation of the history of zoning in Montgomery County. I'll try to be brief. Please cut me off if you think I'm going too long, because I do enjoy talking about this subject. So as neighborhoods around the District of Columbia began to develop in the 1920s, 1930s, the state of Maryland recognized there ought to be some agency overseeing all this development in order to make sure public facilities were adequate, streets were properly connecting, and so on. And Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission was created. And Garrett Park sits within what's known as the Regional District. In 1939, the Regional District Act said park and planning has exclusive subdivision and zoning powers. And the municipalities do not have any zoning, except for those handful of municipalities that already had planning departments in place, like Gaithersburg, Rockville, Poolesville, Washington Grove, Brookville, and the like. For decades, municipalities were imposing setbacks and similar restrictions, thinking they had that zoning authority. Then in 1991, Chevy Chase View was sued when they denied a permit for someone who wanted to build a deck that would have encroached into the required Chevy Chase View setback. And the homeowner appealed and won. And the court said Chevy Chase View cannot impose setbacks. That's zoning, and you don't have that authority in the regional district. So that surprised the municipalities in the area because, as I said, many were doing it from 1929 onwards. So your prior attorney and my mentor, Dave Podolsky, on behalf of Chevy Chase Village and Chevy Chase View, went to Annapolis and got that law amended. And an exception was granted, allowing municipalities to impose setbacks. And you might be aware that that authority was extended in 2006 in response to mansionization concerns. So after that, not only could you regulate setbacks, but also dimensions of structures, mass and bulk, and the like. But how that enabling legislation is worded, giving you that authority to regulate setbacks and other things, it says you can regulate residential buildings on land zoned for single family residential use. So the town code makes a reference to that law in the description of its intents and purposes, but just says these regulations apply to buildings on land zoned for single family use. So just reading that, one might think the town hall is subject to the town setbacks and lot coverage, etc. But if you take a step back and look at the state enabling legislation, you see that that authority given to the town is only for residential structures on land zoned for residential use. That law was recently amended this last legislative session. I helped draft new legislation to clarify that authority because we know multifamily structures are being authorized. So now, as that law is written, it states we can regulate residential buildings containing up to 4 dwelling units. So yeah, as the town hall has no dwelling units, arguably the town setbacks wouldn't apply to the town hall. That said, there is a benefit in still having a hearing and giving residents the opportunity to address the variance application. And it may be that a variance is required from county law. So county law applies concurrently with town law with respect to the building regulations. And the Garrett Park overlay zone in the county code provides that lot coverage can't exceed 20%. So this application proposes a lot coverage of 25.21%. So it's possible that a county variance is needed as well. I need to look into that a little further. Typically, governments don't regulate each other as a matter of courtesy, and also it raises questions as to whether it's even constitutional under home rule for governments to impose setbacks on each other. But the Regional District Act muddies that a little bit, so I need to look at that a little further. That said, again, it is helpful to have the hearing tonight to give residents the opportunity to comment, and also to the extent the county variance is required, the County Board of Appeals typically wants to hear from the municipality as to their thoughts on the application. So rendering a decision tonight with the findings of fact as to whether this property is unusual and whether the unusual conditions create practical difficulties, and whether the council supports the variance would be helpful in the event a county variance is required. So is everyone familiar with what variances are being requested? I could go through them quickly. What do you think, Mr. Mayor? Should I do that, or is everybody generally familiar?
I think we're
The
familiar.
last variance was in October of 24. Is that correct?
last variance for,
The last variance proceeding that we held was, and I wasn't here, and I guess we have two council members who weren't here either.
okay,
Is that
yeah,
correct?
I guess that is correct.
Yes, okay. It might be well briefly summarize
I guess I'm wrong.
the standards for a variance.
Okay, certainly. So yeah, I'll just focus on the two big standards that we have that are similar to that derived from case law, the case of Montgomery County versus Rottwein in particular. Number one, variances should be based on unusual dimensions, shape, topography, or other exceptional characteristics of a particular lot. So the council should consider, is there something unusual about this lot that creates a hardship in strictly complying with the code? And in the record, you'll note that there is a site plan reflecting the shape of the lot. And as noted in the presentation submitted by the architect, Mr. Wiedemann, the lot width is about only 50 feet. And I would note that you are in the R90 zone, and at the county level, the minimum street frontage for the R90 zone is 75 feet. So it is smaller than that. And also, the existing building is non-conforming to the setbacks, which may create in part the need for the variance tonight. So the Garrett Park required side setback is 10 feet. And if you look at the site plan, you'll see that the addition is proposed to be 8.5 feet from the north side and 7.2 feet from the south side, requiring variances of 1.5 feet and 2.8 feet respectively. But the existing building is non-conforming to those setbacks as well. The existing building being only 8.7 feet from the north and 2.2 feet from the south, which may present unusual condition. Non-conformities can be unusual conditions. Now, with respect to the north side, there's a proposed stairway and access under the town code. Again, the side setback is 10 feet, but the code allows a 3-foot encroachment for steps. So this required setback for the steps is 7 feet. 4.4 feet is proposed, requiring a variance of 2.6 feet. And then lastly, the town code requires a lot coverage no greater than 18%, and 25.21 is proposed, leaving a variance of 7.21 feet. So again, the council in its deliberations should discuss what's unusual about this lot, and does that unusual condition or conditions create practical difficulties in complying with the code. You do have in the record the presentation from Mr. Wiedemann. You've got, pardon me one second, go back. Yeah, the October 13 letter from Mr. Wiedemann, the November 5 analysis from the town's Land Use Advisory Committee, and then there's an 11/4 email from Jim Wilson, 11/8 email from the Renbames who spoke tonight, and then the November 10 memo from staff. So that's it, and I'm happy to help the council through the deliberations if there are any legal questions as to the applicability of those standards.
Thank you. To tee this up for specific discussion and consideration of the request for variance, I will entertain a motion to approve a variance to the town of Garrett Park for the following exceptions from its own setback requirements and lot area coverage requirements. A variance of 1.5 feet for the north side setback proposed addition. A variance of 2.8 feet for the south side setback proposed construction. a variance of 2.6 feet for the step side yard encroachment and a variance of 5.21% from the lot coverage requirement.
It's actually 7.21, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
it's 5.2.
It's,
Remember, we don't have to grant ourselves a variance from our own more stringent standard on that. Unless you want to make it 7.21 out of an excess of caution. What is your recommendation?
So it's my understanding that the 5.21 came from
The county.
the county, but the town's is actually 18%, not 20%.
All right. So the motion would be for the 3 yard setbacks and a variance from the lot coverage requirement of 7.21%.
That's right.
Do I hear such a motion?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. That puts it on the table for discussion. The discussion of the elements to satisfy the requirements for a variance are set out in both Mr. Wiedemann's presentation and the analysis of George Martin on behalf of the Land Use Advisory Committee. The exceptional circumstance is the presence of a listed historic structure on the lot. That is a liberal interpretation of a characteristic of the lot. But since analogous analyses have been made in other variance proceedings, I would propose that we establish the presence of the 1897 structure and its entry onto the county list of historically protected structures as the exceptional circumstance for the lot. Greg, do you have anything further on the exceptional circumstance issue?
Well, Mr. Mayor, the record is closed. If we're going to take testimony, we'll have to reopen the record and then give the interested parties the opportunity to comment and rebut on that evidence.
Well, Mr. Wiedemann.
But I do think it would be helpful to do that.
He's technically the applicant, right?
Right, but if he's putting testimony on the record, then interested parties have the opportunity to do so as well and to rebut the applicant's presentation. And then the applicant has the opportunity for the final rebuttal.
Well, perhaps we can address that by my support of Mr. Bolt's summary, where he mentioned the narrowness of the lot being 50 feet wide instead of the required minimum of 75 feet. That is an unusual circumstance. As everyone knows, when this chapel was built, it was built on a larger parcel. And by virtue of subdivision, it is now on a narrow lot. So that in combination with what the mayor said in terms of the existence of an 1897 building that itself is very close to its own lot lines are the unusual circumstances that this project presents. And we believe is a basis for the variances requested.
So, Mr. Wiedemann, given that the property is designated as a historic resource, Would tear down and a rebuild even be a feasible option?
It would not be.
And why is that?
It's considered to be a contributing resource in this. It's an important building in the history of the town. And our work has been supported by our presentations to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, is it not an outstanding resource?
It's, I believe it's called a contributing resource.
All right. I'm just going by recollection.
Okay.
May I ask Mr. Wiedemann a question?
Sure.
Mr. Wiedemann, is there a difference between the county variance requirements and the towns as relates to any of these points of variance that are being considered by the town?
I can cover that, Mr. Wiedemann.
Maybe, yes, maybe Mr. Bolt could. There are countywide, and then there are Garrett Park overlay requirements. So one needs to understand the distinction.
Yeah, so with respect to the county requirements, side setbacks will not be required because the county side setback for a lot recorded prior to 1954 is 7 feet. So you've got the addition has a proposed side setback on the north of 8.5 and on the south is 7.2. So you meet the county's required 7-foot setback. As I stated before, though, in the county code, in the Garrett Park overlay zone, a lot coverage requirement of 20% does apply. And the proposed lot coverage of this project is 25.21%. So a variance is possibly needed from that county requirement for lot coverage. But the other 3 variances, no. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And
Mr. Bolt, is there a lot coverage apart from the Garrett Park overlay zone?
Yes.
If this were not in the Garrett Park overlay zone and it was an R90 zone, what would be the permitted lot coverage?
30%.
So it's specifically the Garrett Park overlay zone that imposes the 20% lot coverage maximum.
That is correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
So Mr. Bolt, going back to something you had said earlier, you had mentioned that some of this applies to residential buildings. Is that with regard to the Garrett Park overlay? And is this exempt because of the fact it's not a residence?
Yeah, so great question. And if I could try and explain it more simply, the town has building regulations, obviously, where buildings can be located on a lot. And the county does as well. And the county and town rules apply concurrently. An applicant has to comply with both. With respect to the town rules, the town only has the authority to impose those building regulations that the state says we're allowed to impose. And the state says we can impose building regulations with respect to residential buildings, including up to 4 dwelling units on land zoned for residential use. So there's an argument that the town building regulations do not apply in this case at all, because this is not a residential building with up to 4 dwelling units.
It doesn't address other building types in that same specificity?
It does, but they're all residential.
Okay.
It says, and I'll read from it. This is section 2509 of the Maryland Code, the land use article. And I'll paraphrase. It says municipalities may, quote, regulate only the construction, repair, or remodeling of residential buildings with 4 or fewer dwelling units, including single-unit houses, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, cottage clusters, townhouses, and similar buildings and their accessory structures, end quote. So we have basically residential applying twice. The building has to be residential, and the land upon which it sits needs to be residential as well. So you check one of those boxes. This is a residential R90 lot, but the building is not residential, if that makes sense.
So do you think we even need a variance from the
No.
Garrett Park stuff?
I do not. I do not think it's necessary, but I think it's helpful from a political and transparency aspect to allow this forum for residents to state their concerns. And also, to the extent we do need to go to the county for a variance from that 20% coverage at the county level, in my experience, the Board of Appeals that decides county variances likes to know the opinion of the local jurisdiction. So if we write a decision, addressing the town criteria, it would likely help the Board of Appeals decide its case.
So does that mean that our decision tonight would be framed differently than as a variance decision?
So I would propose, when I write the decision, I would note what I noted on the record tonight, that we don't think we need a variance, but we went through the process for the residents' benefit and to benefit the Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I clarify one thing? Does that apply to all of the variances, including the coverage ratio that we're discussing? I understand the R90.
Yes, it applies to all 4.
So the coverage ratio would fall in that same category, since this is not a residential building. That coverage ratio, in your view, does not apply either.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess this will follow up on this. What would the county consider us? Because we've kind of established that this isn't a residence. And maybe we don't have to grant ourselves a variance from our own setbacks and the like. But what would the county consider this, like a commercial building, or how, in their eyes, what would apply?
It would be a municipal or public use. And some years ago, before the county code was amended in 2014, as I recall, there used to be something in the county code about the applicability of the county's development standards to municipal buildings. That was sort of a recognition, like I said before, that as a courtesy, governments typically don't regulate what other governments can do on the land they own. That's not in the new county code, which was amended in 2014. So, I've reached out to the executive director for the County Board of Appeals to see if she recalls that section. And I'm going to reach out to the Department of Permitting Services as well and see how the Department of Permitting Services would view this issue and whether they would deem a variance would be required from county law. And once I pin that down, I will let the mayor and council know. So, again, typically under Maryland law, the development standards of a county would not apply to a municipality. But our situation is a bit muddled because of the Regional District Act, which I described before. So that makes the answer a little less clear and requires me to do a little more digging.
You need to elicit a factual basis for establishing peculiar or unusual practical difficulties, which is the standard we would elect rather than hardship. And we have a statement from the Garrett Park Historic Preservation Committee that advances at least one argument that denial of the variance would impose peculiar or unusual practical difficulties. And it is that the preservation of the original 1897 building, the chapel in which we are currently gathered, and restoration of its original facade necessitates various changes, primarily the removal of the incompatible later addition of bathrooms. And that in turn means that required restroom facilities, which must therefore be provided in the new addition, must comply with current requirements, including the ADA, as well as fulfilling pragmatic contemporary needs, all of which require a greater amount of space. General accessibility also necessitates that all public functions of the building take place on one floor. The upshot of those considerations is that those desired changes could not be made within the footprint that would be required under strict application of the setbacks. And therefore, those setbacks as applied to this project incorporate peculiar or unusual practical difficulties. I wonder if there's any further discussion on that issue.
So, Mr. Mayor, it may help here for Mr. Wiedemann again to, in addition to what the mayor has addressed, state why there's a preference to continue existing side building lines. Right? Is that for use of existing framing members, internal flow, or the like?
Internal flow, respect for the scale and proportion of the historic building, respecting its secondary massing as a way of both acknowledging the importance of the original building and making subtle distinctions between new and old.
Thank you. So if there's no more testimony, Mr. Mayor, we would just need to ask if there's any interested parties that wish to address the evidence that's been presented, and then the council could move to deliberations.
All right. Were there any other points that we wish to bring with respect to this?
Well, are we gonna address the request for additional screening for the neighbor's property at this time?
At some time, yes. That's
Okay.
not dependent upon
The variance.
the variance.
Change.
However, yeah.
Thank you.
Ron, do you need further from us?
No, I have what I need. So if no other interested parties want to comment on the evidence that's been presented, the record can be closed again, and the council can deliberate. There is a motion on the table. If there's no further discussion, then you can entertain a vote.
All right. So having
And the
received,
vote could include conditions, including vegetative screening.
all right. Having taken further evidence, we'll close the hearing aspect and move to deliberation on the motion to grant the variance. Is there further discussion from the council?
I would recommend, just to make sure we get it on the record, that we amend the motion to condition the approval on additional vegetative screening on the north side.
Okay,
Or some relief, an acknowledgement of the effect that it'll have on the neighbor on the north side. I think that, but that was one perhaps remedy, right? But there may be others.
Because-
That's what they requested.
But that's the one they requested that is relatively within our means to provide.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's perfect. I mean, if that's what they want and that's cost effective for us, I think it makes
but
sense.
why don't we commit to providing a privacy screen without necessarily
Yeah, I'm not
qualifying
suggesting
it by vegetative?
Okay,
A trellis may do.
perhaps. That's more structured, though.
Privacy screening, yeah. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, there's one more condition that I'd like to see imposed. Excuse me. We are in violation of our own boundary. We have our fence 5 feet over into the neighbor's property. Specifically, if you look at the northeast, and I'll call it upper right corner, if you look at the first page of your lot layout here, what you'll see is, it's the one that says Potomac Valley Surveys. You'll see this line, and it's a blue line with dashes, and it comes up, and there's a number. It's really teeny, but what it says is 4.5 feet. And you'll see the darker line come along, and it terminates in a thing called rebar with cap found. And what you'll notice is there's 4.5, and it's on a triangle, so it'll actually come out to 5 feet from what I measured. And I would say that we need to move our fence back onto our property.
This is the property line?
Yep.
If I may, we probably need to reconcile this because I spoke to George Miller. The current fence was put in, I think, shortly before I started with the town. We have another boundary drawing that is different than what Potomac Valley surveyors did, which would show the fence on our property line, and that's what the staff relied upon. So we do need to reconcile that discrepancy between those two documents. I honestly can't tell you which one is correct, but Mr. Miller seems confident that the fence is in fact on the town property line.
Well, that's not pertinent to the variance. That is an
Yeah,
issue
okay.
council could resolve outside of this process.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think rather than make that a condition of the variance,
Except,
which I think unduly complicates that process, we'll adhere to the commitment to provide a privacy screen. But because there appears to be a difference of opinion of exactly where the lot line is, I think it's sufficient that we, sort of as a matter of policy, but not a condition of the variance, agree to revisit that issue, sort out the appropriate property lines, and conform our fencing to it, whatever it turns out to be.
sure.
Does that sound like an appropriate approach? Okay.
That makes sense.
Property lines and fence lines in 19th century Garrett Park are always a movable feast. Okay, so we have a motion, we have one condition proposed to be attached, which is at least arguably germane to the variance, since it provides a north side variance on the setback. Is there further discussion from the council? Any further discussion from anyone else in the room? Hearing none, I will call for a vote.
Mayor, this is Greg Wiedemann.
Yes.
I just want to point out that the 8.5 feet is and the tree that the neighbor referred to kind of both speak to the fact that achieving privacy along there and not restricting the passage is a balancing act. So the precise way to address the real concerns that the neighbor has expressed should be evaluated in terms of what the best way to achieve that privacy is. It may not involve planting trees, say, inside of the fence line due to the restrictive dimension that's there.
Okay. I trust that that concern was met by removing the qualifier of vegetative.
Yes,
And we could use something more on the order of a
yes.
province of the line. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, before we go to a vote, I just wanted to, for the benefit of me, not having been, this may be easily resolvable. But because I have been privy to these discussions since May, I wanted to just ask a question of you and of the council. We heard from Molly and Ken this evening as one neighbor. I assume, although I was not here, that we've had other neighbors who could potentially be affected on any of the sides have ample opportunity to express their any concerns from neighbors abutting in any direction. I'm sure that we've already had that opportunity, right?
Well, as required by our own procedures, every abutting and confronting neighbor was given notice. And we heard from one of the abutting and one confronting. Is that correct? Jim Wilson and
Jim Wilson.
Ravens.
The other abutting neighbor was here present for the hearing, but chose not to speak. Mr.
Okay.
Perry. Mr. Perry was here during the hearing.
Oh,
and
that's right,
left
he's
after
already
the
left.
hearing.
Okay, so,
Or at the end of the
and
hearing.
actually, out of an abundance of caution, because we had one notice returned undeliverable, an unoccupied house. I made certain that the adjacent neighbor with the longest common border received the notice, and he was apparently here earlier. So
Mr.
at
Perry.
least with respect to the formal opportunity to be heard, we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything further? All right, I will ask for a vote on the motion on the floor, hoping that no one actually requires me to repeat it. Is that acceptable to the council?
With the amendment, right?
We will rely on the record to reflect that accuracy. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Bolt, we await your draft or your proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law, and opinion of the council.
Okay, yeah, I'll draft it up and send it over.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Too.
That brings us to the town manager's report, including the financial report.
Thank you, Mayor Keller. So included in your agenda packet is the financial report for the month of October. Just a couple highlights. We did receive a local income tax payment in October in the amount of roughly $13,500. I would note that this is the highest payment we've received in October in the past 6 years. Year-to-date revenues from local income taxes, which is one of our largest revenue sources, total about $83,000 compared to about $2,400 last year. As I mentioned last month, we did receive income tax payments in both August and September that we did not receive in FY 2025, so that accounts for part of the variance as well. As I mentioned last month, we were awaiting our quarterly investment earnings from both the Montgomery County Investment Pool and M&T Advisors. Those payments are made quarterly. We did receive those payments in the month of October, and so that kind of brought our year-to-date investment revenues closer to what we would have expected for this time of year. So it's just a matter of timing. As I've shared several times, the FY 2026 budget assumed a prior carryover amount of $133,500. The actual carryover amount was closer to $160,000, and that additional revenue will be recognized as part of the First Amendment to the FY 2026 budget. And lastly, I had mentioned previously that we had a residual roughly $6 that had been reclassified by the state. It was initially considered to be ARPA funding, but then was subsequently reclassified by the state to be a transfer from the state general fund. Our accountant, Mary Rutke, dealt with that during the month of October, so you may have noted that the ARPA funding is now showing as fully expended, and that the restricted transfer has been reduced by that amount. I'm kind of moving on to our 2024 Legislative Bond Initiative grant. This is the $300,000 that we got for the Town Hall renovation project. I mentioned in my report last month that I had submitted the Wiedemann Architects Design Development Phase Services contract, as well as that contract change order to the Maryland Department of General Services for Capital Grants and Loan Program. They had approved that contract submission, which basically means we were eligible to submit for reimbursement. I did submit a payment request on October 23rd to the General Services Department. The requested reimbursement was in the amount of $165,780.98. I did receive notification after the agenda packet went out from the Department of General Services that they had approved that payment request and forwarded it to the comptroller's office. So we should be receiving that reimbursement payment fairly soon. I'm sure most of you have seen that Bartlett Tree Expert around town doing this fall's round of tree work. They were delayed by weather, so they did get underway on November 3rd. The work is roughly expected to take 2 weeks, so weather permitting, they should be able to wrap up this week. As he always does, Mr. Normandy, our consulting arborist, will review the work that Bartlett performed and basically advise him of any concerns that he has. We basically are awaiting the submission of proposals for the Yendo Park Creation Project. We did issue that RFP on October 8th, and we held a mandatory pre-bid meeting on October 22nd. That meeting was attended by, Kayla, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was 5 firms.
5 is correct.
Yeah, and so bids are due this Thursday by mid-afternoon. So we'll let you know how many proposals we actually receive. And then lastly, just wanted to briefly, comment on the maintenance team activities. Obviously, it's fall, leaves are coming down very quickly. So a lot of our team's time is being spent removing leaves from town-owned properties. We are expected to get the final delivery of the town trees that are being planted this fall. That delivery, which is the bulk of the trees by far, is coming in on Wednesday. And so the team will be turning their attention to getting those trees in the ground. We are still working on the water damage that was done at the Penn Place building from the leak from Black Market Bistro. And basically, Mr. Miller did have a meeting with a subconsultant to Royal Plus, which is the company that we awarded the contract to, just to review the cleaning of the ductwork after everything else has been done. And lastly, the team did arrange for getting some malfunctioning sensors repaired on Strathmore Avenue for our decorative lights there, and also addressing some bulb outages that were reported to us by residents. We usually wait till we have a certain threshold because that work is done by contract. that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
I have two questions.
Sure.
Has there been any progress on the park next to the pool in terms of work that we want to do for sodding and regrading? I think there was a survey ordered or something.
I think you're thinking about maybe the Cambria field renovation.
Correct.
Yeah, so that the survey was completed with the council's decision to have the work done in the fall of 2026. I think I'd have to see if I can look it up real quickly, Councilmember Max, but I believe that Clark Azar is working towards the submission in January, I believe it is. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, they began work this month on the forest conservation plan that is required and are planning to submit to DPS in January. Part of that is those permits do have a shelf life, and so Mr. Azar is trying to coordinate the work on their end and are getting permit approval from the county to make sure that the permit is active when we get to September of 2026.
And my other question is the lights on Waverly. Is Pepco set? Do they work yet?
They do not work yet. I was in touch last week with Traffic Systems. They need to get an answer from DPS on something so that they can provide a piece of paper to Pepco. So that issue has not been forgotten. Everyone is working on it. I think it's just taking a little bit more time than we all would like.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Has there been anything said about the doing the wall at the swimming pool? I know we discussed this many times, the redoing the brick wall.
Yeah, I'll actually take that.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm exploring finding a different company to do the masonry work. But we are proceeding with J.C. Walter, the pool's own landscape maintenance people, to remove and either remove or temporarily store certain landscape elements in front of the wall so that access can be had to the wall. And that's really all I can report at this juncture. We're aware of the fact that it needs to be done either soon or in the interval between the end of freezing weather and the opening of the pool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything further for the town manager? One question, we have nothing further on town hall this evening, do we, Barb?
We do not.
Okay, so Greg and Gabby, if you're still on, as it appears you are, we appreciate your participation, but unless you have a sadistic or masochistic streak, you may feel free to sign off.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate being part of all this.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
what we've got to do is get the necessity or lack thereof of a county variance nailed down as soon as possible, because we're losing time. Next on the agenda is unfinished business, and that is the possibility of a letter to be sent to the Montgomery County Board of Education regarding the boundary study. I don't want to steal anyone's march here, but
Steal away.
we delivered testimony. I delivered testimony on behalf of the town. There was subsequently an online virtual meeting with Julie Yang, the president, or forget the title, the head of the Board of Education, arranged by Nikki Forey and others. I think it was very useful by the end of that conversation. Ms. Yang seemed to have a clearer understanding of the issues with respect to the geography of the town and the relationship between the communities of Garrett Park Estates and White Flint Park. All that notwithstanding, it never hurts to repeat an argument. So, John and Chris, if you want to lead the discussion on whether we should take advantage of the record, which will be open until November 25, by submitting an additional letter, and if so, at least the outlines of what it should contain, and then we'll proceed as we did before, which is to get council consensus and actually draft and submit the letter, since it has to occur before the next council meeting.
Yeah, I think you did a great job, Mayor Keller. Thanks so much. I think the rationale behind that is just simply to kind of tell them what you told them. And so the idea that we were able to be there, to be present, I think backed by written testimony, which very clearly distills down the message of kind of unity within the community and you know, Woodward and WJ being the schools that we would like to continue to focus on. I think that would be super useful. I don't really have anything else. I think we've kind of put together a very brief one-pager at this point. Chris, if you have anything additionally.
No, I guess my only question would be, if we move forward with a letter, would it be addressed to Miss Yang? Would it reference and thank her for the time she spent with us? I would imagine it would.
Yeah, Nikki took care of that.
Oh, she did, okay.
And there was a response from Julie Yang that indicates it did help her in terms of clarifying the issues.
Okay.
Which, as we view the issues, they're sort of self-executing in terms of the result that has to flow from an understanding of the issue with respect certainly to division of Garrett Park, and also the necessity of keeping the two neighborhoods united. Okay, so let me ask, we will reiterate our argument with respect to those two issues, and I would have two questions I'd just like to get your reaction to. Number one, there's recent circulation on the listserv with respect to concentrating solely on option B. Do we want to increase our emphasis on option B or remain non-committal as between the two if the fatal flaw with A is fixed?
My opinion would be we remain consistent with our message thus far. We support option B and option A if amended.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Consensus on that. Okay.
Yep.
My next question is, that was pretty much the extent of our remarks today. Many of those who follow this more closely have far more detailed and, to my mind at least, complex arguments with respect to articulation and other issues. Do we want to get down into those weeds? If so, it'll require some research.
Articulation of what?
Articulation is, I guess, the term for making sure that students who start at one elementary school remain together as they transition to middle and high school. Is that a fair, for those who are more
No, that's perfect.
conversant, is that a fair summary of
Yes,
what
that's-
articulation
Yeah.
means?
Articulation and split articulation, meaning that, kids from a school who were, at a lower school then will go
Their
to,
Park Elementary get,
yeah, they will go to separate.
and then divided again.
Don't want that to happen. Want to keep everybody together.
Yes, with respect to the Woodward boundary study, which is a high school boundary study. But a lot of people have subsidiary concerns about keeping the kids from Garrett Park, who then go to Tilden and have classes with a mixture of other elementary schools, and then all go the same place.
Is the same place Woodward?
It could be either one, but they want consistency.
Jump J.
Yeah.
My thought is we have locked in on a very clear and specific ask. And I think we risk kind of muddying the waters if we could go to the next level of detail and start talking about the articulation. I think that's, where residents and resident advocacy and maybe the CA and those folks can really push for that. But I think our message being sort of a top line, clear message B or option A amended to include all of Garrett Park is a stronger statement. I think I would worry about sort of the ultimate result being watering down our message if
I
we try to
agree.
get into those details.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Without question, I think the clarity that we currently have, is it 100% perfect? I don't know if we'll ever arrive at that, but I do think that the advantage that we have is that we've been very clear on the points. Your message delivered, the follow-up with Ms. Yang. I think that those 2 points are very powerful and work and to our advantage.
Okay, consensus on reworking the positions we've already taken just to make it sound fresh anyway. Okay, good. New business, let's get back to the
Can I just
driveway permits.
What happens next with we kind of folks review and we over email
Oh,
finalize the letter?
yeah, I mean, I
think we
would, I
have the
think
letter, right?
the way it worked last time, John and Chris, you took a first crack at it.
Yeah.
And I jumped in at some point and then
Yep.
we let the others know.
Okay.
Is that all right with everyone?
Perfect. Remind me the deadline.
I'm sorry,
Remind me when does it need to be submitted by?
November 25,
20. Oh, okay.
so 15 days.
Well, we've
Plenty
got a
of
good draft. So
Yeah.
halfway home.
Moving back to the issue of the driveway permits at the Smith residence. Let me to just get clarity. You have filed one permit for the new driveway. Is that correct? The one that goes to Weymouth? Yeah, probably better to get up, identify yourself again and get the responses on the record.
Thanks
Yeah.
for your patience, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for considering it. We filed one permit with that document attached to our permit request.
All right. The driveway work on the existing driveway that comes off Oxford is a little beyond the simple rebuilding of the driveway. Is that correct? It adds width?
It adds some width and adds regrading.
Okay, well,
I didn't talk about the entirety, but it's going to be regrading to make it a slope that's not constantly eroding.
I'm willing to stipulate that a large part of the regrade is to correct a flaw that the town introduced at the time of the SRTS. But my question is whether the additional work, some of it occurs in the town right of way. In other words, to make that very small triangular addition on the west side of the existing driveway?
Yes.
Okay. I think standing alone, that would require a permit. It's not simply a repair of an existing driveway. That's one issue. The second issue is the material to be used between the existing concrete sidewalk and apron and whatever portion of the existing driveway remains, which is currently asphalt. It's my understanding that you want to use asphalt for that entire stretch.
Yes.
And something that I'm still not entirely clear on is that the town's position that that work, that is from the edge, existing edge of the concrete sidewalk, which will remain unchanged, to the property line, has to be done in concrete? Barb? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We just need to understand.
It's on mute.
Barb, you're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize for that. Yes, as I mentioned, my understanding when I started with the town is that we followed the county standard. The county standard, and I'll see if I can successfully bring this up. I don't know if that can be seen, but Mr. Bolt actually kindly sent me this link. This is the county standard. It's 301.01. And if you'll notice in the bottom graphic, what is in hatched lines is basically the 7 inches of concrete, and the county is showing it up to the property line. Obviously, if the council wants to do something different than the county standard, that's your prerogative, and staff just needs to know what is the standard you want us to be administering and enforcing.
Barb, is it a standard or is it a statute?
Generally, Councilmember Stroud, it's quite often that technical requirements are not codified. I can't speak to the county. What it appears to me would be very consistent with what I've seen in other organizations, where your technical standards are essentially kind of an internal document. They're not codified. And that's what it appears to be from the way the county numbering works. And I've been in the county code lots of times. I haven't seen it there. So I don't believe that the county standard is codified. I think it's a technical standard that they've adopted.
So if I understand correct, and thanks for explaining that to me, if we were to use asphalt instead of concrete, we would not be running afoul of the code. It would just be a technical recommendation. Is that accurate?
Correct. What we would be deviating from is what we have required others to do, at least during my entire tenure here. And since the standard existed before me, I assume before that as well.
Okay, so it is a requirement.
It has been a requirement. Obviously, that can change at your direction. I would probably just add in terms of what's codified and what's not. I had the occasion to speak to Mr. Bolt earlier today about the variance hearing and took the opportunity to ask him about it. Certainly I think, Mr. Smith is indicating that it would have been helpful to have had that publicized in some manner. That's certainly something we could do. But as a matter of law, Mr. Bolt indicated that the town inherently, by common law, has the right to enforce construction standards in its own right of way through the permitting process. So I think there's a difference between what's required and what you all might prefer in terms of how we publicize this. And certainly you all are free to tell staff to no longer require to develop a Garrett Park specific standard that is different than the county's.
What's the purpose of concrete in the right of way? What's the purpose of that standard?
Generally, I would say that it is, it's more durable. So it basically keeps the town from possibly having to, face claims because snow plows damage it. I think we've all seen our asphalt curbs all over town. It's kind of the same principle. One strike of a snow plow and they crumble, which is why we're, slowly but surely going through the process of replacing all our curbs and transitioning those to concrete.
But the apron doesn't necessarily have to run all 15 feet. It can just be the apron and then maybe 5 feet of concrete and then asphalt for the duration. There's no durability improvement for the full run of the right of way, is there?
Yeah. I would probably need to ask Mr. Azar. I'm just assuming it's a durability question. But once again, I'm not an engineer. I don't pretend to
Right.
be. It's not an uncommon standard, so there must be some engineering basis for it.
Just for clarifying, it's fairly well known that the right of way is larger on corner units than
Right.
lots than it is at other locations. So perhaps the reason you haven't had more concerns raised by driveway permit others who've had the standard is because the actual feet of concrete was much smaller or it was closer to the actual apron. Is that a fair assessment of the difference of what you're experiencing here?
I would say that I would not say that every resident has been thrilled to have to do concrete, by any stretch of the imagination. Because obviously residents would like to do it at the least cost that they can. I don't disagree. I don't know. I'd ask Mr. Miller to, delve into what the right-of-ways were on both the Oxford and the Weymouth side. Certainly there are deviations in town. I can think of one example during my tenure, Councilmember Bennett, where the person's right-of-way was 25 to 30 feet. It went up about 2/3 of the way through their front yard. As we were processing their permit, which was just a single driveway, it wasn't a new curb cut or anything. We did make an exception in that case and shorten the amount of concrete that particular party had to do because there was certainly no benefit to the town of having someone basically do concrete, 30 feet up somebody's from the street.
So we have made exceptions.
That was the one that I'm aware of because of an unusually long, a deep right of way. Mr. Miller was going to look at the right of way maps and needed more time. We were obviously doing meeting setup today. And so he can certainly delve into it to see exactly what the right of ways are on both sides of this property.
They're represented in the exhibit we provided to the town.
And
15 feet.
So I didn't measure them, but they're dotted lines in my permit filing. It's I would say roughly 10 or 12 feet.
Yeah, 12, it looks like.
I was going to just quick say, I would suggest Mr. Miller also look at the work we just finished relatively recently at the Shaw Acre House corner of
Okay, we can do that.
Argyle, because I know from having worked on that whole thing that basically that right of way was far deeper than where they're at, and they basically got to a point and they terminated the concrete and went over to gravel. But anyway, sorry, Chris.
Phil, I didn't quite follow what you said. Are you saying that there's less concrete, the concrete doesn't extend through the full right of way?
Correct. It does not. It does not.
Does not.
Yes.
So that would be another exception that's very recent and one that the town paid for entirely.
The apron,
Yes.
that location transitions immediately to gravel. Not even asphalt.
Yeah, Mayor, what we have typically, as I can think of, Councilmember Deutsch and I were talking earlier, once you're out of the right of way, if a resident wants their driveway to be gravel, it can be gravel. If they want it to be asphalt, it can be asphalt. The town's only interest is in the work that's done in the right of way, not beyond that.
But one of the things that strikes me about this is we can say that, but it's not a very practical thing to expect a third or a fifth of a driveway to be concrete and then transition to asphalt because of the right-of-way line. One of the beauties of Garrett Park is that we can follow Montgomery County sometimes, and sometimes we can blaze our own trail. This strikes me as a situation where, while I recognize we've been doing things a certain way since you got here, Barb, and you were kind of handed a set of pre-existing requirements, that's not necessarily a reason to continue doing so. If we look at a situation like this, and it seems fairly obvious, there's a perfectly suitable concrete, I keep forgetting the term. Apron. And that it would make sense for the rest of the driveway to be whatever the owners see fit, within reason.
Well, and it also doesn't sound like in either of the two known situations where the town did not require concrete throughout the full right-of-way space, that there was any kind of variance hearing, that it was an administrative allowance for a different standard than the county standard.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I reiterate that Mr. Smith brought up was that one of the reasons for having asphalt was to help protect the roots of the tree, because concrete's not always nice. As we know, it could eventually buckle, whereas the asphalt will give. And it's a nice specimen, so I could see yet another reason why we would want to say fine with asphalt, you know?
Agreed.
I would totally agree, and I know we're getting to,
No.
Right.
no.
For beyond the apron.
Beyond the apron.
I would just agree with that. I think the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Smith have gone through the trouble to, to speak with Phil Normandy and have, paid deference to that, to me, I would agree with that wholeheartedly, Phil. I think that if is that amenable, is that kind of what you would picture, just to be clear, the concrete apron and then the material of your choice? Right,
that's what we represented. What I didn't clarify before, which I'd like to clarify now, is then speaking with the landscape architect, he envisioned a county inspector coming out and the apron to be fully compliant with county code. So this is, the landscape architecture is dealing with the county. There's no county issue.
And the apron being concrete,
we will put a concrete apron on the Weymouth egress.
Yeah.
And to either of the acceptable county standards is required.
Yeah.
What about on the Oxford egress?
There is an existing concrete apron, which the town deemed acceptable on 2020 when they did the
Just gonna
project.
Keep that.
Right.
Barb, I wanted to get another clarification.
A picture, if anyone had.
Thank you.
That's Oxford.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tree.
Plus, if the
Yeah.
town installed the asphalt during the sidewalk project.
Yep.
Okay.
So it tore it in there somewhere.
Barb, I wanted to get another clarification. Perhaps I misunderstood, but when we were just discussing the changes to the permitting and permitting fee requirements, I thought it was stated that the town, if an application is made for a whole site plan at one time, there's one application and one permit, and the town charges one fee that would be the highest permit fee for whatever the project is, as opposed to just adding all the fees on top of each other. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, I think you're mixing kind of two concepts, Jerry, if I may. So there's the actual application fee, which is designed to at least somewhat recover the town's cost for processing. permit applications. I think what you're referring to was the right-of-way restoration bond piece of that resolution that you just adopted at your last meeting. This situation wasn't really necessarily what I had in mind when I added the note, but we were thinking about when someone is demolishing a house, building a new house, and putting in a driveway. Those are all three separate permits. What we had said in the resolution, it was sort of an clarification note, as that is part of the actual resolution, was that if in that situation where you had multiple permits for the same project, you would post the highest amount for the right-of-way restoration bond, and that would remain in place until the entire project was done. So it had to do with the right-of-way restoration bond piece, not the actual permit application fees themselves.
So if someone puts a site plan in, they have to submit separate applications for every different type of permit application. So if they have a fence, if they have a driveway, and they have more than one curb cut, they have to do 2 driveway permit applications?
We haven't had that situation come up, but that is the way the county would handle it. And part of that is there is separate review typically of each section of it. But yes, if the county gets a circular driveway, for example, my understanding from Mr. Azar is they would, in their case, they would basically require separate permit applications and they would require separate bonds for each of those curb cuts, is how the county would handle it. In our case, the most common one has been, unfortunately, houses being torn down. So they actually get 3 separate permits. One is for the demolition, which comes before you all. You are actually the issuer of that permit. The town just processes the paperwork afterwards. They would get a new home construction permit and they would also get a driveway permit. Because the driveway is reviewed with the assistance of our engineering firm, we are very fortunate for the new home construction to be assisted by the volunteer Garrett Park Land Use Advisory Committee. Does that answer your question? You still look like you might have one.
But it's still one application and you're just.
No, they are all
for
separate
each.
applications, separate
Each
filings.
is a separate application.
Okay.
Yeah.
I looked at the website. I think we could do some better communication on our website about that because it does not say that. I looked at the checklist, I looked at the instructions, doesn't say that at all.
Yeah, we haven't had, I will say we haven't had any questions about that, but we can certainly try to make everything as clear as possible. That's certainly our goal, is to communicate information appropriately.
All right, and our position here would be that this requires 2 permits because the driveway on the Oxford side is not simply being refurbished or otherwise resurfaced, but is going to be added to within the town right of way. Is that correct?
We had asked for clearer plans to show what exactly was being done on Oxford. And yes, that has been the town's position. It's 2 separate right-of-way disturbances and work.
Well, are you willing to stipulate that this is your plan, significant for all
It's significantly,
practical intents?
yes, yes.
And that the smaller triangle,
That's, I didn't get into all the, that's being added to address some of the grading issues.
to
What
the
we're
west-
doing is we're moving some of the earth from the
Yep.
green space down to the driveway and paving over it because there's significant erosion problems. But to add clarification of why that's being done.
okay. The small triangle to the west of the existing driveway is new construction.
Right. Sure.
Okay. You've already applied for the permit on the Weymouth side.
Yeah, I mean, we applied for a permit with this driveway. There wasn't any description of what
Okay.
we're going towards. We consider it to be one contiguous driveway.
Okay. So you will in effect be asking for a permit for the Oxford side for construction in connection with enlarging the existing driveway, including work on the right-of-way, but
Right.
not affecting the apron or sidewalk,
No, just
Oxford side.
they will be undisturbed.
And you will apply for a driveway permit for the Waverly side with the understanding that a concrete apron meeting one of the two county standards that the town has adopted will be employed on the
Filing of the application.
So I think the question before us is, are we going to insist on the use of concrete from the apron to the right-of-way?
Yeah,
Understanding that both historically and I believe recently, that has not been the consistent position of the town.
Right, there have been other exceptions, and in this case, it seems like it would be detrimental to the large redwood tree there to insist on concrete.
And an additional cost burden to the owner for no real
An unnecessary.
value.
Well, that's a larger policy discussion. I'm going to suggest that we try to deal with the issue before us, since tonight is predicted to be the first hard freeze of the season,
I mean,
and somehow address the larger issue, including policy issues. I mean, we have parts of town where this would result in someone on one side of the street pouring 1 inch of concrete from the edge of the apron to the lot line, and on the other side, 30 feet of concrete. And we really have to consider other policy issues with respect to the underlying reason for requiring concrete beyond the apron at all. And there may be some. All right.
I would say, well, in this case, I would support granting an exception and allowing them to
All right.
use asphalt in the right of way up to the apron.
I mean, you guys are essentially replacing what you have. I mean, right now it's asphalt and you're just leaving the existing concrete in place and you're just gonna butt up against it with asphalt.
Right,
which is
on the
what you
Oxford
got
side,
now.
we're doing
Yeah.
that. Right, and what the town did to remediate the removal of the driveway 5 years ago.
All right. Barb, I sense a consensus on the part of the council. How do you believe this should be handled? Should we put it to a formal vote?
I think that would be helpful, just to have it in the record.
Somebody want to formulate a motion?
Make a motion that in this particular instance, the apron will be concrete and the rest of the driveway will be asphalt. And we are okay with that as an exception.
Including those portions within the town right of way.
Right.
Is the dimensions of an apron a standard? Does everybody know the run of an apron? I'm just asking that as a clarification.
I think it's a good question, Lisa, and I was actually going to ask you all to clarify what in your mind an apron means in terms of its dimensions.
Well, one of them's already existing.
Yeah.
Right.
One of
So
them was
that's it.
and installed by the town.
But the new,
Right.
so that, I would ask the engineer that question.
I can do that.
Mention of my apron on my property and using that as a template for what this could be. 'Cause know
I would
it's
agree to
15
match the
feet.
apron that exists next door on Weymouth Street. There's one next door, Heidi and Steve's house. And I would, whatever apron supplied by them, I'd agree to match.
That's a double drive, as I recall. And I think the maximum is 20 feet. I don't know what the minimum is.
That sounds right, Mayor, from what I recall from some prior discussions on this topic. I think it's more a matter of not how wide it is, but how far it goes back.
Right, that's the question.
All right, Councilmember Stroud has moved that we direct staff to make an exception. This one instance conditioned on the applicant submitting a separate application for work on the Oxford side that would exempt any requirement of concrete between the apron and the property line.
The existing apron.
The
right?
existing apron.
The existing,
Both aprons.
the existing apron / sidewalk on the Oxford side and the new apron on the Weymouth side.
Right.
But what's the dimension of?
Go, stop. Can we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Now, discussion.
I just want to clarify the run of the apron on the Weymouth side. How deep is it gonna go?
Is this to scale?
I believe so. I didn't draw it, but yes.
It looks like it matches the other.
That has to be a minimum.
Here, what you need is one like this.
There's no scale.
It's always good to have an engineer in the room.
Might be a scale on.
He doesn't travel without that,
Appears to be comparable to the existing.
So, what are you looking for, like an existing apron?
The run of the apron on the Weymouth.
Well, the run of the apron here shows as only being basically 6 feet. And
To be clear, Councilmember Schultz, you're saying it.
Say that what's the back is about 7 feet from the end of that concrete apron to the right of way. All things should be like 15 feet.
So you're saying that we want the depth of the apron, the concrete apron to be 6 feet? Not 15?
As long as it's 4 feet, we're happy.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at the other ones, hold on to that 5 feet, yeah. I mean, so I remember 6 feet as being typical for the edge of the street to the end of what we would consider the apron, the typical about 6 feet, like about.
is that helpful to you?
What is?
Make that apron not equal the run of the right of way, but to
Yes.
just be a shorter.
Yes, we propose to install an apron as is depicted on the plan we provided.
Okay,
And you're willing to sign us, to apply, file a second application
Second application as it exists
for the work expanding the Oxford side driveway in the right of way.
Sure. I mean, that's,
Well, that's the one you did. Or no?
How do you read our current application? What, I guess my question, a clarifying question is, how do you read our current application to apply? Is it just to apply to the Oxford curb or the Weymouth curb?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this too, because they're not making a change to the curb cut on Oxford. Yes, they're making a change to the right of way, but it's one application for the whole of the right of way at their property.
That's how it's defined in our permit application.
I'm sorry?
I agree that would characterize how we applied for the current application that's on record right now, right? That we just submitted in mid-October.
I haven't seen the current application. Was it accompanied by this map?
this document is providing the carbon application, no. We're applying to do exactly this. Let me clarify what this represents right here. Because this is curb, because the initial portion of it is so steep, it's gonna require adding, soil to level it out, so it's a more gradual curve. And, to bring it up over the first step that we have currently, on our walkway. And so the proposal was he was just gonna cover that up with, with asphalt after it was finished, regrading both this area, lawn area, which is eroding right here, and, regrading the driveway. So that's why it's widened right here. That's, so we don't have to do a retaining wall. That's the whole idea with retaining wall. It's very costly. This way, we can address the erosion without the retaining wall.
Okay, we're looking for compromise here. Are you willing to file a second application? For that portion of that work? that
Right,
is in
I will,
the town right away?
contingent, if the town votes on our current, with the exception of that particular, slice tonight, and then I will file a second application tomorrow.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other questions or discussion? Kayla, do you have all of this?
I think I do, but recognizing it's getting late into the evening, I'd ask everyone's patience as I repeat what I have as record. So the motion was made by Councilmember Stroud to, in this particular instance, for the homeowners at 4400 Oxford, to relieve them of the requirement to have concrete going the full right of way, that they are allowed to have asphalt in the right of way, that they are granted this relief upon the condition of them applying for a second permit for the side of the property, which I believe we've established as Oxford, that they have not currently applied for, and that their apron depth on that side would be matching to the existing concrete apron that is on the Weymouth side at 4 feet. Am I catching?
It's reversed.
It's reversed.
Okay.
It's reversed.
That's
I'm
okay.
confused when the second application is for the Oxford side, because I think it might make more sense if our current application is for the Oxford side. No?
No.
Okay.
So,
Your,
So
your new driveway is on the Weymouth side. And that's, I
Yeah.
suspect, without having seen it, that that's what the
Oxford
application is.
has the existing apron,
Okay.
and it's gonna be widened slightly to allow for the grading.
Okay.
This is our driveway
Right.
onto Oxford.
Right.
It's just one driveway.
And you can see where we're gonna apply for the second permit. There currently is, it's erosion, just pouring down, where we're gonna flatten it out.
And I'm going to ask Councilmember Schultz just to clarify, was it 4 feet or 6 feet for the existing apron that we are asking them to match?
The existing apron is 4 feet on Oxford Street.
Okay, and that's what
Approximately.
council is asking them to match, correct? Or is it
Right.
Minimum of 4 feet.
a minimum
Yeah,
of 4 feet?
minimum 4 feet. I mean, it should match the existing, whatever that turns out to be.
In that case, I think I have it. I look forward to everyone fact checking me when the draft minutes are circulated to council prior to the December meeting. Thank you all for your patience as we fact check that motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no
Thank you.
further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Barb, I hope this doesn't cause a relapse.
Me too.
Relapse in what?
Further evidence of the wisdom of Otto von Bismarck, the people should never see what go into their sausages or the making of their laws. Fortunately, this won't be a law, but I think we need to rationalize the requirement because there have been historic exceptions. And we'll let it go at that for now.
And I'm happy to work with town staff on any language updates on the website that might help bring some clarity to the permit issue, so.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Is there any other new business, town updates, Arboretum Committee?
Going back to new business, are we still attempting to schedule a work session?
Well, we
Or have we
gave up
given
when
up?
no one could make any of the proffered
So that's not,
dates.
we're waiting for whatever budget we're.
I think it might be useful both in terms of sort of formal assignments and so on. We've muddled through on that, but also discussing the kind of broader gauge governance issues that typically are discussed in those work sessions. We dispensed with it last year because there was no turnover in the council, and you had just gone through a analogous exercise a couple months earlier, taking a full day. This year we have a change in the council. And I think it would profit us to have that kind of discussion. We were unable to find a mutually convenient date. If it's the sense of the council that we should revisit that, I'd be happy to do so.
Yeah, I'd just like to recommend that we perhaps start working now towards perhaps a January timeframe. Given the holidays, I don't think between now and the end of the calendar year is going to work for us, but start planning now, perhaps we could schedule.
let's
in
do it in January.
'Cause I agree, some of these governance issues that keep coming up, that we heard from citizen presentations tonight in particular, it would be helpful.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Arboretum Committee, two things. One, thank you to everybody for participating in the tree walk. We had over 50 participants, and so really great participation and really good education in particular for folks about how the tree protection work when people apply for permits and when the permits are overseen in terms of implementation can benefit town trees in terms of their health. Also, the Arboretum Committee in their November meeting, which will be November 19th at 7 p.m. at Penn Place, intends to take up the topic that the council reviewed at the October meeting of considering bonds for tree protection separate from the bonds that we approved for just basic right-of-way restoration in October. So I just want to make sure that everybody was aware of that in case anyone wants to listen in or participate. And that's all I have.
Okay. Chris, did you have a report on the new Parks Advisory
I'll
Committee?
keep it brief. The new Parks Committee met and with great enthusiasm, we'll be digging back into the survey results from July and making some recommendations and engaging with the town in some yet to be determined ways. So they're off and running and ready to get things done.
And they elected Naveed.
They did,
Nakui?
yes. Naveed Nakui will be the chair. Susie Welker will continue to take the minutes as secretary, and those are the two positions.
Any further?
What are we doing about the citizens association
Um,
presentation?
well, I think that would be an appropriate topic for discussion if we want to talk about larger directions of governance in Garrett Park at a organizational meeting, or call it what you will.
Right, that was kind of what I was suggesting for a January work session.
Yeah.
Governance topics.
My only comment to that would be that was a a strong statement. And maybe we asked to get it in writing and take a look, and I'm not saying any immediate action needs to be taken, but it was a fairly serious presentation from the Citizens Association. So the question would be, do we wait till January, or do we want to consider what they had to say?
I'm not sure it's realistic for the whole council to meet unless we put it on our December agenda.
That's what I would propose.
You know, so I don't have a problem with doing that. I would encourage also the mayor and the town manager to perhaps visit and see if there's any interim mitigation
Yeah.
of the bad faith that seemed to be represented by that.
I would agree.
Presentation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jerry. I would agree an acknowledgement, a near-term acknowledgement. I think it warrants the, kind of the value that all these disparate parts play, right? The council, the staff, the CA, I think is, having that functioning, I think is pretty important to what we do. I think it's also, I would agree that it's really important to, we don't have to resolve everything tomorrow, but I think acknowledging the gravity of what it was.
And giving the town staff an opportunity to
Absolutely.
weigh in.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Town council meeting that we discuss it and find out the status of what's been accomplished by the time of that next town council meeting.
Okay. Noted. Anything further? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.